Welcome to This Explainer. I am absolutely thrilled to have you here today because we are going to unpack a story that is honestly just as heartwarming as it is profound. We're looking at a narrative that completely strips away all those complicated buzzwords you always hear about achievement, and it just reveals the true, totally unglamorous mechanics of success and perseverance. Right? Let's dive right in. We're going to analyze the journey of a man who spent his entire life delivering things to other people, only to discover a really profound secret about how we deliver success to ourselves. So what if success was a letter you had to deliver to yourself? Just let that metaphor really sink in for a second. Our story focuses on a man named Ethan. And Ethan, well, he was a mailman. Day in and day out, he was literally the vehicle for other people's opportunities. He was the guy handing over the college acceptance letters, the dream job offers, the bonus checks, the birthday cards. He spent his days delivering opportunities to literally everyone but himself. And, how many of us kind of feel like that in our own lives? Like we're just facilitating everyone else's journey while our own is just stuck somewhere in the sorting facility. Section 1. The Mailman's Secret Dream. We're looking at Ethan's daily routine in a quiet, small American town.
18. Man, the sheer weight of that number is staggering. For 18 years, Ethan worked his exact same route. Every single sunrise, he'd wake up, put on his uniform, and walk the exact same streets. 18 years of just watching the neighborhood change, watching kids grow up and move away, watching businesses open and close. And every single day, he was carrying the physical manifestations of other people's moving lives, their bills, their milestones, their job offers, while his own life remained entirely static. And this stark contrast brilliantly illustrates the internal conflict Ethan was facing. Out in public, he was delivering success to others. People in the town absolutely loved him. They smiled when they saw him. He was this friendly, reliable fixture of their day. But in private, it was a totally different reality. Every single night, Ethan returned to a tiny apartment with empty pockets and unfinished dreams. He had this burning desire to start his own business, but he was caught in that dangerous trap we all know way too well. Whenever he thought about his dream, life's immediate pressures would step in, and he would tell himself, maybe next year. But as we just heard, maybe next year compounded into 18 long years.
Section 2. One Small Act. A call to adventure on a seemingly ordinary, freezing cold winter morning outside an old mansion. So Ethan is just doing his usual route when he notices an elderly man really struggling to carry heavy grocery bags up to this mansion. Now, the source notes that most people simply walked past. It was freezing cold out, people were busy, they had their own lives to attend to. But Ethan stopped, and he made a choice that became the key to his entire future. Without expecting absolutely anything in return, he carried every single bag inside. This wasn't some networking opportunity. This wasn't a strategic career move. This was a pure, unfiltered act of character. The old man just smiled and told Ethan, "You remind me of someone." Ethan smiled back and went right back to work. While weeks go by, and then something completely unprecedented happens. Ethan gets a letter. But it's not a letter in his mailbag to deliver to someone else. It's a letter addressed to him. It was an invitation for a meeting. And that really begs the question, why did the old man choose Ethan? So Ethan goes to the meeting, confused but obviously curious, and learns that this old man had spent his entire life building successful businesses. And now, at the tail end of his career, he was looking for a protege. He was looking to pass on all his knowledge.
This breaks down exactly what this lifelong business builder was searching for. And spoiler alert, it wasn't the person with the best resume. Notice the mentor's criteria here. He wasn't looking for the smartest. He wasn't looking for the richest. He was looking for the most trustworthy. The old man knew that skills can be taught, right? Business acumen can be developed. But fundamental character, like stopping in the freezing cold to help a complete stranger with their groceries, that cannot be taught. Honest character was the absolute ultimate prerequisite. And because of that single, selfless act, he had chosen Ethan.
Section 3. The 5-year grind. Because accepting this mentorship began an incredibly grueling road of trials. Ethan's nightly curriculum was intense. Business, investing, leadership, discipline. Every single evening after walking his mail route all day, completely exhausted and likely just wanting to crash on the couch, Ethan had to sit down and build a completely new foundation of knowledge. He transitioned directly from his daytime physical labor to his nighttime mental education. He wasn't just handed a business on a silver platter, he was handed an education, one that required immense, exhausting effort to actually absorb. This perfectly illustrates the separation between the ordinary and the extraordinary. While average people were spending their evenings watching TV, and let's be honest, we all love a good binge watch, Ethan, on the other hand, studied and improved. This is such a sharp behavioral dichotomy. He was quietly, painstakingly transforming himself in the dark when nobody was watching. giving up his leisure time to slowly inch toward that dream he had deferred for 18 years. Which leads us to Section 4, Surviving the Hard Years. It's time to face the harsh business reality. Finally, after 5 grueling years of studying, Ethan took the leap and opened his delivery company. But tracing his timeline shows exactly where the romanticized idea of entrepreneurship hits a total brick wall. 18 years as a mailman, waiting for a dream. 5 solid years of grinding night study. Then, year 1 of his business, a difficult, rocky launch. And year 2, even worse struggles. Understanding this timeline emphasizes a really hard truth. Success is never, ever overnight. It's a gruelingly slow process. In fact, the source material notes that during year 2, things were so bad that Ethan's own friends were actively urging him to just quit and go back to his safe mail route. But he didn't quit. Why? Because of one powerful truth. Dreams don't work unless you do. This was the anchor from his mentor. When the bills were piling up, when the customers just weren't calling, when his friends were literally telling him to throw in the towel, Ethan repeated this to himself. A dream is just a thought. It requires relentless, often painful labor to drag it out of your head and into the real world. That mindset right there is what prevented Ethan from giving up. And because he pushed through those brutal first 2 years, just think about that trajectory. Little by little, the compounding growth actually took hold. At first, there was just one single customer. But then, he did a fantastic job for them, and that one customer became 10. Those 10 became 100, and eventually those hundreds turned into thousands of customers. It wasn't some viral explosion. It was the slow, undeniable math of persistent quality and a total refusal to quit. Section 5, The True Meaning of Success, and our final revelation. So, years have passed. Ethan's company has scaled massively. One morning, he's driving his car, passes his old post office, and he sees his own company trucks making deliveries on the streets he used to walk. He looks up and whispers, "Thank you for that one unexpected letter." Because the real revelation here, he smiled not because he had become a millionaire. He smiled because he had become the man who never gave up. His ultimate reward wasn't just the financial gain, it was his personal transformation. He had finally conquered his own maybe next year mindset. So, what should we all take away from this? Let's summarize how success actually arrives in the real world. First, it is rarely wrapped in money. Nobody handed Ethan a check. Second, it almost always arrives disguised as a small opportunity, like carrying groceries for a struggling stranger. And third, it's only visible to the hardworking. If Ethan hadn't been the kind of guy willing to do the work when nobody was paying him, he never would have passed the mentor's test. Which brings us to our final thought. Your future isn't decided by where you start, it's decided by whether you keep walking when everyone else stops. Ethan started in a tiny apartment carrying a mailbag for 18 years. But he kept walking through the freezing cold, through the 5 years of night school, through the absolutely miserable second year of his business. So my question to you, the focused learner, is this. What small, unglamorous steps are you taking right now to ensure that you keep walking? Think about that as you go through your week. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I'll catch you next time.